I was waiting for somebody to go first, Christina. You're still muted.
All right, I said, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So my acronym for this morning is, in the spirit of my predecessor, is TBIF. I just created that one this morning. Anybody guess what it is?
TB like Baker?
T and then B as in Baker. Too
I'm
bad.
guessing T has
Bad
to be
Friday?
T.
Too bad it's Friday. Yep.
Oh,
Oh, man. All right.
I don't think that one's gonna be a meme.
No, I don't think so either. Kim, could you please move over Mr. Yulo, who is as a participant right now that will be sharing with us? He's coming under Morgan Hill Community Services.
Oh, Davey.
No problem. I just promoted him.
Thank you.
Christina, I
Yes.
thought it was thank Brittany. It's Friday.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I thanked her yesterday, so I was early. Dr. Gittens, it's a pleasure to see you at this meeting.
It's wonderful to be joining. I understand that Wendy Sullivan is unable to join, so I wanted to be sure that there was another trustee joining you, John. Good to see you.
Christina, could you do me a favor? And
Certainly.
Send me the agenda again. I don't
Yeah.
seem to have it saved in my
Yes, we'll do.
annotate, which I thought I did.
Mhm. And I did get a message from Councilor Mayor Pro Tem McKay, who will be with us shortly, having some technical issues.
Okay. Okay, as soon as I get the agenda, I will start the meeting. Did everyone get the supplement?
Yes.
I sent you both a link to our website as well as the original agenda packet.
Got it. Yeah, I know it was saved to annotate, but it for some reason is not there now. So. Okay. Let's see, is my camera working? Get back up. There I am. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I am calling the City of Morgan Hill and the Morgan Hill Unified School District City Liaison meeting to order. I will ask if there's any public comment. And we have two members of the public on with us right now. I do see somebody on their phone, so I'll remind you, if you are on your phone and wish to address the committee, you just have to hit *9, and that will raise your virtual hand, and that way you could be recognized. All right. And let's see, is Michelle or Christina, are you going to be kind of running the meeting, roll call, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So we have Kim Mancera on, who will be
Oh,
helping us with the meeting today.
I see Kim's name right there. Hi, Kim. Good morning.
Hi, Rich. Thank you. Okay, I'll start with roll call. Mayor Constantine,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem McKay, Vice President Horner,
Here,
Trustee Giddens.
Fantastic. And could I get a motion for the approval of the, first of all, does anyone have any questions on the minutes? And I will remind my colleagues that if you weren't at the meeting, you can still vote. You don't have to abstain. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
so moved by John.
Thank you, Trustee Horner, and I will second it. And could I get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Constantine,
Aye.
Vice President Horner,
Aye.
Trustee Giddens.
All right. And then that moves us to the joint city Morgan Hill Unified School District items. The first one will be the supplement, which is the closure of Reed Hillview and impact on San Martin. And Christina, are you going to address
Yes.
that?
Mr. Mayor, I want to recommend that we change the order right now. We have Mayor Pro Tem who's going to be joining us, and this is one of his follow-up items along with Trustee Horner. And so if we could just wait a few minutes, and then maybe what we can do is sort of jump into the other items and then come
Sure.
back if you don't mind.
So we'll go with the city of Morgan Hill COVID update and
Yes.
PD update.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sounds good.
All right, so I will start with our COVID update and return to the office, and then I have teammates that are on the phone that might want to add additional items to this. And so I'm really excited to announce that we have now fully opened up City Hall. And so we are back to pre-COVID hours, which is from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We had done sort of a soft opening. We're open 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. But now our doors are back open. So we do have a steady flow of people coming in to do in-person services. However, many people have become accustomed to doing things online. And so we continue to see online applications. And so that's a good thing. So our teammates that we're working from home are back to the office. We do have some telework agreements between certain employees and so some are continuing to work from home and then come into the office as well. I wanted to mention that at a recent council meeting, we adopted a resolution consistent with the new law that requires us, if we're going to stay with Zoom and not have in-person meetings, we have to adopt a resolution and then revisit it every 30 days. And so we will be doing that every 30 days. And so our council voted to stay in Zoom, and we'll just continue to monitor the conditions to determine when it makes sense to go back to in-person meetings, and that will apply to our commissions as well. I'm sure the school district as well has been following sort of the county guidance. And I met with the city managers and the CEO of the county this past week, and we talked about the county's kind of sort of metrics that have to be met before removing masks in public and indoors. And so my guess is we'll sort of align that with when we go back to in-person meetings. And so the metrics probably at the earliest would be achieved by January to February was sort of the consensus. And so we're continuing to monitor that. And we have a few constituents that, are looking forward to in-person meetings. And so we've been talking with them about things that help enhance the Zoom experience. So that sort of concludes what I wanted to share with returning to the office and COVID updates. I do want to ask my teammates. I have Public Services Director Chris Gioni, Assistant City Manager Edith Ramirez, as well as Program Administrator Tony Yulo, and Chief Powles-Grove and Captain Ramirez. Anything to be added to what I just shared?
Nothing from me, Christina.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so Mr. Mayor, I do see that we have Mayor Pro Tem McKay on, so I would recommend that we proceed with our discussion on the airport. And so I'm going to ask Tony Yulo to provide a brief report.
Good morning, certainly Christina. And I have to apologize for both Mayor Pro Tem McKay and Vice President Horner. I've never said those words before. For what you're going to hear is a bit of a repeat over what we talked about a week ago, but it's important to get everyone else up to speed. So in mid-August, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors took actions to begin the process of closing Reed Hillview Airport. Reed Hillview is a very busy airport in San Jose, and we had been tracking this issue because of the concern about the increase, the pushing flights to San Martin as a result. One of the issues that arose as they were preparing for this item and in the months leading up to this issue is that there's lead deposition from private planes. And as incredible as it seems, leaded fuel is still the primary fuel used for general aviation. Not jets, mind you, but piston aircraft, the little Cessnas and whatnots that we're used to seeing flying around and are, of course, very common at San Martin Airport. So they did studies and found that the lead exposure levels in the neighborhoods around Reed Hillview were actually, in some instances, very close to those that they found in Flint, Michigan. As we know, lead is a very serious pollutant, particularly impacting childhood development and brain development. It's not like you can be cured from lead poisoning. It stays in your body and you are forever impacted. So we tracked the issue, but nonetheless, the county board voted to take actions to begin the process of closing Reed Hillview. It's important to note that they can't just close it tomorrow because they've accepted funding from the FAA in the past. And one of the conditions of the funding is that the airport has to stay open for a certain amount of time. So they've kind of put the FAA on notice that they're starting the clock on that time period and that they intend to close the airport. So in addition to taking the steps to close the airport, the county board also says they also said that they want to phase out lead at all county-owned airports. So that would have the effect, if carried out, to eliminate the sale of leaded fuel at San Martin. A few things to note. First off, it's important to recognize that San Martin is only about half full in terms of hangar and tie down space. So in other words, they could double the number of airplanes stored and using San Martin on a regular basis without turning a single shovelful of dirt. They don't need to expand the airport to accommodate more planes. The second thing to recognize is that even ending the sale of leaded fuel at San Martin will not necessarily eliminate the use of leaded fuel at San Martin because pilots can fuel at other airports that still do sell leaded fuel. And lastly, I think worth noting that for many airplanes, they need the leaded fuel at this point. There isn't a functional equivalent, at least there isn't a broadly acceptable functional equivalent, and that could change. A few of us on the call here, particularly my friend Vice President Horner and I, are old enough to remember when leaded fuel was sold in cars. And we can remember the transition period in the late 60s and early 70s as leaded fuel was phased out. So there's a few passages in the county's report that are important for us to know about. One is that while Reed Hillview has 4 different tanks, and it's kind of easy to convert one or more of them to unleaded fuel, San Martin currently has only 1 fuel tank. So their staff report identified the need to add a fuel tank if they're going to start selling unleaded fuel at San Martin. Secondly, that they also recognize that unleaded fuel might be more expensive and that they could accomplish and create an incentive for using the unleaded fuel by sort of artificially affecting the market for that at their airports. So we had a little working group meeting a week or so ago, including Vice President Horner and Mayor Pro Tem McKay and Dr. Garcia and Christina. And we decided to kind of pursue a 2-pronged strategy. One is on the fuel tank issues and fuel storage issues, to kind of work directly with county staff to ask them how that's going. In other words, the board's action said that fuels, they shouldn't be selling leaded fuel after December 31st. We thought we should check in with the county executive staff about that issue and how that's going. The second is, in our conversation, and even prior to our conversation, we recognize that this action to close an airport is the type of action that should definitely be the subject of a full environmental analysis in compliance with CEQA. So prior to the board's action, the city of Morgan Hill actually submitted a letter to the public record to the board saying, you need to do CEQA before you do this, which they ignored, as well as at the board hearing where they considered this item, I testified to that same effect, saying you need to look at CEQA before this, precisely for the type of issues that have been raised and concerns of what will this do in terms of lead deposition down in San Martin, if you're pushing airplanes down to San Martin, as well as traffic noise concerns. You know, there's other concerns that need to be properly accounted for. So Dr. Garcia was kind enough to line us up with a attorney representing the school district. That attorney and the city attorney and I met yesterday to discuss the CEQA process and that letter. And we're going to do a little more research and work on what will be envisioned to be a second letter to the county, kind of reminding them / demanding that a CEQA analysis be done before any final actions are taken. And then the first letter would be the letter that was supplemented, which would sort of put the district and the city on record as kind of following up on the important actions that the board took back in August that we're concerned about. And that concludes my remarks. Sorry if I went on a bit, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood where we were. Be happy to answer any questions, and also happy to hear additional comments from Vice President Horner, because he shared that this is a long-standing interest of his. So.
Before we get into comments, I'll ask if there's any questions regarding Tony's report. Okay, not seeing any hands up. John, you wanted to make some comments?
Thank you, Mayor Rich. You know, that's my favorite term, Mayor Rich. Move over, Mayor Pete. Mayor Rich is in town. And Tony, thank you for the report. And Ms. Turner and Dr. Garcia, thank you for the follow-up work after our meeting. Excellent staff like yourselves makes it real easy to be an elected. You know, we have opinions and chit chat, and then you jump in and do the hard work. I really appreciate that very much. And it'd be very interesting to hear more on the CEQA angle of things. You know, certainly I understand the report. I understand kind of where we're at, and you know, I certainly would. I don't know if we're gonna have motions, but I would certainly vote to approve sending the draft letter that's attached, if that's what you're asking for here. I'm not sure what our process is going to be. And then also to let you know, Mayor Pro Tem McKay and I had mentioned in our earlier meeting that Robert Rivas's office is also looking at the leaded fuel issue. And in fact, both of us have been invited to participate in a Zoom meeting with them, I think on the 27th. That's just going by memory, but so there's a, you know, kind of regulatory and staff level to this work, and there's also ongoing advocacy. And I think as electeds, you know, kind of the advocacy aspect is probably the most appropriate place for us to involve ourselves in any detailed way. But, you know, hopefully the state will likewise start moving towards, you know, getting the lead out of general aviation fuel and aircraft, period. As I said in our small meeting, you know, the EPA and the FAA have been dragging their heels for well over 30 years on this issue and just treating it as, well, there aren't that many planes, what's the big deal? And then we start looking around airports and going, oh, actually, you know, it is a big deal. Analogously, I'm sure most folks have noticed that the governor just signed a bill saying no more gasoline powered small engines, I think after 2024, which is going to have a lot of operational consequences for organizations like ours and individuals, but also I think long-term is the right thing for the health of our air and our community. So, you know, these are things we have to keep pushing forward on. And certainly the idea that, you know, solving the lead problem in Reed Hillview by moving it to San Martin and Palo Alto and everywhere else is not a solution. And my opinion continues to be that the county is just kind of punting and ignoring all the consequences. So I appreciate pushing on the CEQA aspect, because I don't see how there's any justification for just ignoring that. I don't know if they're hand waving it away with a mitigated declaration or something. I haven't followed the process, but anyhow, those are my comments. It's the only thing I really added is that we have a follow-on meeting with Robert Rivas' staff. Sorry to be so long-winded.
Thank you, John. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for the report, Tony. And thank you, Mayor Constantine, for giving me a chance to ask a question and comment. I echo everything that John said. And I guess my question for Tony would be, since they've already ignored our request for a CEQA review, how do we up the game, so to speak, and get them to respond? I know that many of us have relationships with members of the Board of Supervisors. Are we in contact with them? Why aren't they responding? They're ignoring us? There isn't even a response letter. They're just ignoring us.
Well, the only sort of legal approach they could have taken for not doing CEQA is to say they didn't take a final action. However, I listened to the intent of the board on that night back in August, and it was very clear they were starting that process. So we have an insider that has some knowledge of the workings of the county, and he has explained that it seems like county council is not properly being consulted with on some of these actions, especially some that are maybe clearly have the political will behind them. And in this instance, this is a pet project of a member of the board who was very interested in seeing it through. Although that member of the board may not be on the Board of Supervisors that much longer. With regard to Supervisor Wasserman, who also, of course, won't be on much longer, he did everything he could that evening to slow this down. I just want to make sure that we don't in any way criticize him. He was able to add a resolution in the spirit of consensus, to add a resolution to their action saying that in no way is this action intended to result in any physical changes to San Martin. However, as I pointed out, they don't even need to expand the airport in order to double the flights that are there. So I think that by involving the attorneys, Mayor Pro Tem McKay, that's the way for us to sort of get into them paying attention to us. And that's precisely why I consulted with the attorneys yesterday. So we're kind of lined up on that path. I would certainly be disappointed if we ultimately had to sue them over this, but I think the law is clearly supports our position, so I don't think there's any question that we'll get this done.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the question about current activity levels at the airport, and I really do think that's going to help open a dialogue that hopefully will continue with our county friends. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? I will just add that just the fact that they have or will be having unleaded fuel at San Martin Airport and also at Reed Hillview doesn't mean it's actually going to be used. As you can imagine, airplanes are a little bit more sensitive than cars, and if there's an issue when you're at 5,000, 6,000 feet up in the air, that can become a hazard, not only to the pilot but the people on the ground. And until there is buy-in by the airplane engine manufacturers and the FAA to really educate the pilots, I can tell you they're not going to use it. I was at Reed Hillview Airport about 3 weeks ago, and I spoke to the fueler that was there, and they were telling me that they didn't know when they were going to get the fuel. They had to get another truck because they can't mix the fuels. You just can't empty the one tank of the truck and then put unleaded fuel in it. There's still lead in there. And that I asked the pilot, I said, would your plane take unleaded? And he didn't know. And that's going to be the issue. So there is going to be a lot more study that's going to need to be taken. And also there's going to have to be some education to pilots, because pilots are not going to change until they have to, and then until they're assured that they're not going to have an issue. I can tell you that Supervisor Chavez is also the chair of the Bay Area Quality Management District, a board that I also serve on. And the board is moving to go to the EPA, or send a letter to the EPA to have the EPA work on getting lead out of aviation fuel. So I think that'll go pretty far into helping push, shall I say, airplane manufacturers and the FAA to really take notice of this, because this is going to be a tactic that's going to be used throughout the country to get airports to be closed. No one wants their children exposed to lead. And if we have mass closures without any kind of a backup to say, okay, this is how we're getting lead out, we're just moving the problem around. And to say that the closure of Reed Hillview wouldn't really have an impact on the surrounding airports is a bit disingenuous. And I can tell you, the majority of the traffic will go to Reed Hill or to San Martin. And the reason why I know that is because the airports that surround us, going up from Palo Alto, San Carlos, those airports are pretty full. They don't have a lot of capacity. And San Jose International had just demolished most of their general aviation hangars. So they don't have the capacity either. That's why a lot of airplanes that when San Jose closed their general aviation area moved to Reed Hillview, because Reed Hillview was the next airport that really had the space. So the majority of the planes will come to San Martin if Reed Hillview is closed. And that opens up another can of worms, because the difference between Reed Hillview and San Martin is Reed Hillview has a control tower and 2 runways. So you can imagine if the traffic is increased to exceptionally large amount at San Martin, the FAA is going to have to start thinking about safety of the increase. So I don't foresee this issue being solved anytime soon, as far as this county being able to close, but we haven't heard a lot from the federal agencies that regulate airports that much. So more to come on that. And I see that Trustee Horner has raised his hand again. Do you have another comment, John, on this?
Yeah, just briefly. And that's why this really is a national level issue, and all, we're one of the victims, if you will, of this circumstance. And really, the FAA and the EPA have kicked the can for 30 years. I mean, you can do Google searches and find research studies on this in the 80s, in the 90s, last week. Help is always on the way, but like with so many environmental things, absent a requirement, it just doesn't happen. As much as I love capitalism and am a capitalist, I also recognize there are problems which it is not designed to solve, that have to be solved by law and by regulation, and this is one of them. So we'll keep adding our voice, but we're one of many, and I know you're a pilot, Mr. Mayor, and I hope within the pilot community, that community also will get its head around, get the lead out, just as our farmers have to keep being reminded to get their head around being efficient in the use of water and fertilizer. So many of these industries have we do what we do, leave us alone, leave it alone. We feed you or we keep you safe, or, whatever the argument is. But it's really the status quo is fine. Stop bothering me. I want to think about something else. So we're going to have to keep pushing it and making noise.
Thank you very much for that. And if there are no further comments, then we'll go ahead and move on to the PD update.
Good morning, Shane Palsgrove, Morgan Hill Police Chief.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning. I'll touch on school updates, crime, youth programs, and a great meeting that my team had with Dr. Garcia and her team. So with the school updates, we're still seeing some behavioral issues, and fights have gone down for a little while. And then we had a couple more fights, and the SRO ended up meeting with school staff and reviewed some resources and try to quail some of those issues, and it looked like that it is working out well. We have Run, Hide, Defend training coming up, as well as Parent Project. Moving on to crimes, El Toro Elementary School had a burglary where there was a significant amount of property that was taken from the school. Our detectives worked real hard on that case, and I am proud to say that they've identified the suspects and are still working on that. So that's all the information I will share right now. As far as citations, last time we spoke, we had issued 3 citations at the schools. That was 2 citations at Sobrato and 1 at Live Oak. 2 citations were for battery with some serious injuries. We've issued 1 more citation since then, and that was for possession of sales of drugs. So we've had a total of 4 citations issued. Those are 2 for assault and battery, 1 for a possession of a knife on campus, and 1 was possession of marijuana for sale on campus. And I will say, without disclosing too much information, because it is a youth, that the possession of a knife on campus was also, that youth was also contacted outside of school on a more serious crime. So it's important for us to hold him accountable. The SRO is investigating a battery against a teacher currently, and another allegation that's serious in nature, but involves 2 youth that I won't get into. So I'm not quite sure where those cases will lead in regards to citations. But I will say that students are disclosing to our school resource officer of crimes that have happened to them, whether it be at school or off school campus. So I'm happy to report that there is enough trust with the SRO for students to be disclosing to him. As far as our youth programs, our community tobacco officer is continuing his education presentations out in the community. And I understand that there are some handful of students that are being caught with vaping products still. So we are more than happy to offer some of those educational programs to the schools. Moving on to our diversion program. We're still waiting for the district attorney's office to hire a coordinator in order to get that off the ground, but we are pending some of our youth citations so that we can refer those youth, even though they've been cited a month or 2 months prior, and getting them into that diversion program. And then our cadet program is still going well downtown, and we are still looking for explorers and continuing both of those programs. And then lastly, as I mentioned, our team met with Dr. Garcia and her team, and we talked about some of the expectations of the Board of Trustees and adding to the MOU and identifying some best practices. So we discussed having an intervention team at Live Oak, identified some resources being offered to the students, and making sure that both the police department was aware of what's happening, so we could supplement anything that was needed. The school resource officer has a more focused attention and presence at Live Oak High School campus due to some of the escalating tensions over there. We'll have a follow-up meeting in November. We've created a monthly meeting with the school district and the police department to review some of the trends, identifying when student, and then looking to find out what we're going to track as it relates to when students are referred to police on campus, identify other data collection points, putting limits on police involvement and student discipline that can be handled by the school, and figuring out if it's realistic and practical for us to collect police contacts, like when our school resource officer is out tossing a football with students or engaging in other kind of activities. So, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I will just add that I know my teammates on the city side know this, but perhaps my teammates on the school district side may not know that our police department has the highest rate, or highest closure rate, or one of the highest closure rates in the county. And what that means is it's from the time of the crime to arrest and adjudication. So it's not a surprise to me that we already have leads on the suspects on that break-in. So I really appreciate that. Now I'll look to my colleagues if there are any questions on that report. Okay, seeing none, before we move on to the Morgan Hill Unified School District report, I will take public comment, and I do see that there's one hand up. Brian Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a comment regarding the Reed Hillview and the San Martin airports. I've had some discussions with the people in San Martin, some of the residents that live near the airport. And when you look at the stats from Reed Hillview, the 2019 stats show that they had 208,000 takeoff and landings that year, 2019, and probably more 2020. And they're the 68th busiest airport in the nation. That's including all the major airports like San Jose, San Francisco, et cetera. When you do that number out, that's more than 500, per day. And that, at 24 hours, that's 20 planes taking off continuously 24 hours a day. And of course, we know that they don't take off that much at night and through the early hours of the morning. When you add in the 37,000 takeoffs and landings currently in 2019 stats on San Martin, now we're up to 28 takeoffs and landings per hour. There also some discussion going on, and has been for a number of years, about extending the runway at San Martin. I don't think there's been any talks yet about adding a second runway. That would be more difficult, but they could extend the runway somewhat going south. So there's a lot of issues with this. I don't know what the total answer is, and I know you guys have worked on it very hard, and I know that the Wasserman and a number of other people on the county board have been working on it also. But my understanding is that by 2035, they have to make a decision and have already done it. So we may have some time, but the issue is still there. I don't know how it's going to come about, but I appreciate all the efforts that the city's doing to try and work through this and not affect the residents down in San Martin and Morgan Hill and Gilroy greater than they already are. And I know, Superintendent, you have your, airframe. I'm sorry, that's the Gilroy. The college has theirs down there, and I had a meeting with the superintendent down there, Dr. Rose, and they're worried also about the effect it's going to have. So there's lots of things to consider, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. And if you wouldn't mind emailing me that study with those numbers, I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you can just go on and just Google, number of takeoff and landings at San Martin, California Airport, and they'll come up and you can look at it, and they'll have all the takeoffs and landings both for that and right next to it, Reed Hillview.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I don't see any other members of the public, so I'll close public comment, and then we will move on now to the school district report.
Morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Good morning,
Okay,
Dr. Garcia.
Good morning. So I am currently in Burlingame. I'm the Vice President of California City Superintendents, and I'm the facilitator of our 24-hour conference. And so kind of to the side, and keynote speakers to my left. So you might be hearing a little bit in the background. Anyhow, I want to share a brief presentation. I know that we met a couple of months ago, and so I'd like to brief all of you on what we have been doing in the school district. But first we'll start with a COVID update. We do have, this is a current status update. We have 93% of our employees who are fully vaccinated. For the remaining 7%, they are submitting themselves to weekly testing, and we continue to encourage them to also be fully vaccinated. We also have a COVID-19 dashboard dashboard, what we do is a week at a time. And so these are the numbers that reflect last week's. And we'll post this week's data next Monday. So you see that we've had 4 adults test positive for COVID and 7 students test positive for COVID. And again, these numbers are reflective of last week. We also are very proud of the partnership that we have with Santa Clara County Mobile Unit. They've come out multiple times, and you see the stats there, 197 vaccines. And we've had 5 clinic dates. And we also are continuing to partner with them, and we'll have additional vaccines in early November. And this is for our students and our youth in our community who are between 5 and 11 years old. And as a parent to 3 kids, 10, 8, and 6 who fall in this range, we're all crawling toward that finish line at the end of October and early November. We also have welcomed back our volunteers. So beginning October 1st, we literally opened our doors to all volunteers, but we need to ensure that they are TB cleared and that they also have a COVID-19, that they are fully vaccinated. And in addition to that, fingerprint clearance. And this is the same thing that we do with our walk-on coaches and contractors. With respect to the additional updates in our school district, I want to wish you and hope that you all had a phenomenal Hispanic Heritage Month. The topic of our Hispanic Heritage Month, it was hope. And so we had a drawing contest, and you see some of the submissions. Absolutely love the top one, where a 4th grader defines hope as meaning that we should all get along instead of fighting with each other. So Haley, Sally, Molly, need to continue to be friends. And on the bottom right, you see that for this student, hope means no corruption in his or her country. So happy Heritage Month. I'm also continuing to listen and to read and to learn, meeting with everyone in Morgan Hill and South San Jose and San Martin. So that includes parents and students and CBOs, community-based organizations. We have an alphabet soup in education. So I'm really enjoying listening and learning from everyone in our community. I'm also holding my chats with Carmen of my first one on Tuesday at Pete's Coffee from 9 to 10:30 a.m. These are not the only opportunities to speak with me. I am, as I said earlier, everywhere. I am meeting with every site, blocking out hours at a time so that I can listen and learn from our certificated and classified members. We are meeting with our Home and School Club presidents. We have quarterly meetings, and we're also in the process of ideating, creating an additional Parent Superintendent Advisory Council, where I can continue to listen and learn from our parents and their perspective. We also had a grand opening of 4 wellness centers, 2 at our middle schools, Britton and Martin Murphy, and 2 at our comprehensive high schools, Sobrato and Live Oak. They're busy, welcoming our students and helping them with their social emotional learning needs. Also had a very successful fit for fall at Cecilia's Closet, where we invited our principals and our community liaisons, who are a very important connection to our community. A huge thank you to the Edward Boss Prado Foundation for continuing to invest in our families. Chief Palsgrove mentioned earlier an uptick in increased poor misbehavior from some of our students. And so we are seeing this vast need in social emotional learning support manifests itself in poor behavior in some of our schools. And so this really highlights, I think, the importance of public education. We in the public school setting do not turn kids away. We welcome all of our students, and it is our ultimate goal to ensure that we meet their SEL, social emotional needs, and their academic needs. And so we thank the city, we thank Morgan Hill PD for partnering with that effort to not look at students from the deficit perspective. Being away from our physical campuses has affected our students. It's affected all of us, really. And so this is an opportunity for us to collectively come together in our hope to support our students to bounce back from the very detrimental effect that COVID has had, that school closures have had on our students. etc. So toward this end, we are also providing some restorative practices, restorative justice practices training for our educators. And that's in a very solid partnership with the South County Youth Task Force. We also have a plethora of resources that we are connecting our families to in a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 effort. We have a lot of resources out connecting the level of need to the students and to the families with the appropriate CBO, community-based organization, in addition to other resources. Also, I am exploring college partnerships. So to date, I've met with San Jose State, UC Santa Cruz, Santa Clara University, Evergreen, and Gavilan colleges to be able to create this K through pre-K through 16 pathway for our students. Also, would like to share that not all of our students are coming to in-person instruction. We do have an independent study that's long-term, and these are the numbers broken down by K-5. We have 93 students in independent study and 141 students in 6 through 12. So it's a total of 234 students. Also, on behalf of our Human Resources Department, I'd like to highlight that they had a very successful hiring fair and within 3 hours able to fully process 38 candidates. We still have a vast need. We have a lot of vacancies in our school system, so please help us spread the word. You see the positions broken down by area, so classified positions, you see the list, certificated positions, and also administrative positions. We are in desperate need of substitute teachers. So if you or anyone you know has a bachelor's, we will connect him or her to our Human Resources Department and we'll help them get their substitute credential, among other things. Also, would like for all of you to join us in celebrating our school administrators. This is a School Administrator Week. We are thankful for all of our administrators in Morgan Hill Unified School District for their heroic and Herculean efforts in welcoming back our students. We also have the Student Nutrition Fright Farm. Our Director of Food Services, Michael Jochner, does not like us when we call this the green machine, but this is actually a green machine. It will produce 2 to 4 tons of lettuce annually. And also, Britain, as you drive through Monterey, you see how beautiful Britain has been rebuilt. And so we have a couple of outstanding buildings still yet to be finalized. And so that's the Britain Student Union Administration building, the Student Union and the administration building. And so here's a rendering of it. We expect that construction will begin in June of 2022. And also, lastly, we're happy to join our Morgan Hill Rotary, among other partners, Booksmart, Morgan Hill Live, and the Santa Clara County Library that has recently been renamed Mayor Tate Library. We have a writing contest, and I recorded a brief video for the Rotary to spread the word about the writing contest. And so I'll play my video to describe what this writing contest is all about. Greetings, I'm Dr. Carmen Garcia, Superintendent of the Morgan Hill Unified School District, with a fun invitation. The Rotary Club of Morgan Hill is hosting its first annual flash fiction writing contest. How creative can you get in 100 words or less? The Flash Fiction Contest has 2 categories, one for young people ages 17 and younger, and a second one for students or adults 18 and older. I encourage you to participate in the contest. We'd love to read your stories that are 100 words or less. Consider this a fun way to focus on your storytelling creativity, enveloped in that unique skill of brevity. There will be prizes for the top 3 stories and an opportunity to publish your stories in a book collection. You could also win a $250 cash prize. It will be so fun for the community to enjoy the work of our district students and community members at large. Be sure to submit your story by December 10. We cannot wait to read what you create. Happy writing. Greetings. And on that note, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Trustee Horner.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Good to see you again. And thank you for your role in the statewide association. You know, there's a long Morgan Hill tradition of our local folks here taking leadership positions regionally and statewide, and glad to see you're already well ahead of that tradition. And thank you for the presentation. The only question I had on the COVID dashboard, I can't recall if we're keeping or you can share information on vaccinated versus unvaccinated status. You mentioned 4 adults and 7 children. And I'm particularly wondering if those 4 adults are, amongst the 7% that who are regularly being tested or otherwise, and I don't know if you can share anything about that.
We have our internal database of our staff who are fully vaccinated. I don't know if Assistant Superintendent Von Myers actually compares those who test positive to that database. So I currently have not done that analysis. Vaughn, I don't know if you've done that.
So we do have that information. It's not something we place on the dashboard, but I think to answer your question, Trustee Horner, Vice President Horner, is that we have had some breakthrough cases. In fact, one teacher who went through surveillance testing, and she is vaccinated, fully vaccinated, went through surveillance testing, and it came up positive. And she was surprised too. She was asymptomatic. Nevertheless, that's A positive, and she needs to quarantine because, of course, she's around students. So, it's an example, though, that I think we are seeing some of that, but we're not tracking it for the dashboard purpose. But we do have that internally because we do all the contact tracing and notification.
Can you characterize if the majority of these cases are amongst the unvaccinated, or
Yes, the majority are for adults are unvaccinated, but we have had several. And last week's of those 4, 1 for sure was vaccinated, and it surprised her as well. And it's disappointing, right? I mean, all of those cases, but to our knowledge, she did not develop any symptoms. She did need to quarantine, but did not develop symptoms, which is also good, but unfortunate that she was carrying the virus.
Yeah, thank you. So some school districts have done full surveillance or regular surveillance. Is that something? I know there's a cost and a logistics involved, which are non-trivial. Is that something we are looking at or not at this time?
Yes, we actually are in communication with a company who can come out and provide that. It's very labor intensive. And so the reason we have not yet begun is not the prohibitive cost of testing, because the state has covered that. The state has covered the cost of the actual testing kits. What has become cumbersome, I think, for a lot of districts is scaling up for the labor that it takes to do that. So there are companies who have developed and they create roving mobile testing teams, and that's not for the reactive testing. We are already doing reactive testing day 1 and 5 of notification of a positive on campus, and weekly surveillance for all staff, but in particular those that are unvaccinated. And we also regularly test all of our athletes, band members, FFA members. So that's more than 700 students at the secondary level are tested weekly. And so it's a really good random sample of our secondary student population. And those are the students that are eligible for vaccine, but it's hovering, according to the county, at about 53% of those age eligible are currently vaccinated. So still some work as a community to really bring out our not just 5 to 11-year-olds, but our older students. So we do intend, that's a long answer to your question, but we do intend to bring in a roving testing team that can do that on our behalf for the regular surveillance. And they call that pooled testing, and it's where you can take a large group and it gets processed as one batch. And if it's negative, you go on. And if there's a positive in the batch, then you individually test everybody in that group. And we currently just don't have the labor to do that work, but the mobile team should be able to.
Thank you. That's helpful. I appreciate it. And thank you and the rest of the team for all the work.
Thank you for that question. And if I just get a follow-up, when do you anticipate bringing on that roving team?
Yeah, good question. So one of the things, we're really technical, but we have to have somebody CLIA certified. And that just means that that individual needs to be overseeing all of our testing. And so she just got CLIA certified at the end of last week. So the mobile team now can come on under her CLIA certification, although everybody on the mobile team will also be CLIA certified, but because we're the contracting agency, we had to have one member. So they are saying that within 1 or 2 weeks, this would be week 1, next week will be week 2. It's not happening fast enough, but we are eager. And so we're very hopeful by the end of October, we'll have the team in place.
Great, thank you very much for that. And Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, thank you for the report, and thank you for keeping us abreast of those COVID cases, because it's just a reminder that it's in our community and that we can't really let up until we feel we've eradicated it, which could be quite some time. And I understand that you're going to have another vaccination clinic, and I hope that some of the outstanding students and adults will take advantage of that. Moving along, Dr. Garcia, I don't think I should say welcome to the community anymore. I think you're now a part of our community. I really appreciate the fact, let's go have coffee, let's have lunch. I think it's wonderful that you're going out into the community and on a listening tour and talking to the members of our community. So I don't know if this is a premature question, but I'll tell you that I believe most of us have been in the community long enough that we've developed perceptions about our community. What has your perception been? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? Is it too premature to ask that question?
So sorry, they're on a break right now, so they're a little bit loud. Can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. So prior to even considering, submitting my name for the position, I did a deep data dive quantitatively of our district. And so what I'm doing with the listening, reading, and learning is adding layers, the qualitative stories to those quantitative numbers. And it's timely that you asked that question. We're going to have a deep data dive, a study session, not a special study, but a study session next Tuesday, where we will be looking at that data, and I think that we do some, really good things. I think that we need to systematize those efforts. We need to look at our curriculum, at our core curriculum. We need to look at horizontally and vertically aligning that curriculum. We need to bring data to the forefront in both the formative and summative assessment sort of way. And we're hoping to add professional learning communities to those conversations. And so, we'll be looking at rigor. So I have a lot of ideas. I don't have any definitive, answers, but I have several paths that we can proceed. But it's also important to bring everyone along. And some of the data is really heartbreaking, to be honest with you. There's a lot more that we need to do for our students. And in public education, we know what works. We just have to do it. So that's sort of in a nutshell. We can do a lot more, and we will.
Thank you very much for that. You've always got to understand what the issues are to overcome before you can start to address them. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Not seeing any other hands going up, I will go ahead and look to members of the public and open it up for public comment. And again, if you're on your phone and wish to address us, all you have to do is hit *9, and that will raise your virtual hand, and I will know that you'd like to be recognized. And not seeing any hands going up from the public, then I will go ahead and close public comment and wait, I just saw a hand go up. Let me go back to the attendees list. And we have a member of the public, Yvonne Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, trustees and board, city staff. I'm sorry I didn't catch you quick enough, but I really wanted to commend you for the efforts of getting volunteers, Superintendent Garcia, into the schools. Lots of us parents have been dying to get in and do volunteering, and it's been really hard with the COVID. So I do not envy you at all. I know the challenges that you're facing. We've been start and stop with all of the infections going on, but it has been fantastic to hear that you guys are going to get us back in there. And I know that you need the help and we need that contact with the kiddos. So thanks so much for that. I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Member of the public, Martinez Beltran. And with that, I will move on to other reports. Are there any other reports? Seeing none. And I was going to say before I move back to the members of the public, thank you, Dr. Garcia, for doing double duty today and being with us. But thank you for doing all the fantastic work that you're doing on behalf of our children. And that goes for all of your teammates. We really appreciate it. We also really appreciate our partnership that we have with us, with the school district. I think it's very strong, and I look to make sure it remains so. So with that, I didn't see any of the hands going for other reports. And Ms. Turner, you have something to bring up.
Yes, I do. I thought it would be fun to end on this note. Dr. Garcia mentioned the 100-word writing, and former city manager Ed Tweez was at the dedication of the library on this past Saturday, and he followed up very quickly after the meeting with a 100-word item, and it's about Morgan Hill, so I thought it was very appropriate. So I'm gonna share my screen and I'll read it as well, if you guys don't mind. All right, here we go. And this author is Ed Tweez. The restaurant had declined steadily from its chicken pot pie days, dark, greasy tables, old folks, walkers next to red banquettes. Unremarkable service. It was where we wrapped up the negotiations that brought me to Morgan Hill. We walked outside to a bright, clear day. Pointing west, I confidently observed, "What a spectacular view of Morgan Hill." My future employer replied, crestfallen, "We already agreed to hire you, but that is El Toro, you idiot." That's when I learned that the town was named for a man who earned his fortune the old-fashioned way. He married it.
I love it. I love it. That it kind of reminds me, this was back in 2009. I know this because that's when I was running for council, and I attended a meeting in the old council chambers, and that was when high-speed rail authority started coming into prominence. And one of their first presentations, they were showing how the viaduct would look with mounted Morgan's Hill in the background, and they were referring to El Toro, and I was like, oh boy, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So anyway, but yeah, no, thank you for that. That was very funny. That was good. All right. Are there any topics for the future meetings? Not seeing any hands going up. Okay, and before we adjourn, our next meeting will be on December 17th of this year. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and Dr. Garcia, enjoy the rest of your day there. All right, everyone, meeting adjourned. Thank you.